Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Speaking about sweeping the country, who's going to be able to help me with this one? It's a strange story. You know that of all the discoveries we've made together on this programme, the ones that sort of shake us to our core, for me, one of the worst was life expectancy and socioeconomic status, life expectancy and wealth. There's an old adage about the Jubilee line heading east and life expectancy diminishing. It doesn't really work now because of Canary Wharf and redevelopment in the east, but it used to be the case that as you headed east, so on the Jubilee line or the Central anyway, as you headed east on the train out of central London, life expectancy diminished at every stop as you went from the wealthy end of town to the poorer end of town. And, you know, go back to Victorian times and life expectancy and wealth would be even more closely allied. And we used to discuss it from the context of money. I don't know whether the conversation we're going to have now will boil down to money, but northerners are dying younger than their counterparts in the south. This is quite remarkable. The likelihood of dying before the age of 75 is 20% higher in the north of England than it is in the south of England. Right, I've got something to say about this, but if you want to ring in now and just tell me why, then that's it. You don't need to know any more. I don't need to give you any more detail. If you can get a handle on this immediately, then do so. Why would living in the north of England make you 20% more likely to die before the age of 75? Hit the numbers now, you will get through. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. Any answer you've got? Now, I've lived in the north, not for very long. I went to school in the north, but I don't think that was a very representative experience, given that I was at a fee-paying boarding school. Both my parents are from the north, but they now live... well, my dad's not with us anymore, but my mum now lives in the Midlands. I grew up mostly in Kidderminster, which is a fairly run-down sort of former market town in Worcestershire. It's one of those places that never really recovered from the end of the industrial age. Used to be carpets that kept the money flowing into Kidderminster, but fewer and fewer carpet factories are still open, and a lot of the kind of concrete monstrosities that were thrown up in the 60s and the 70s have cast a very ugly shadow over what used to be quite a pretty Georgian market town. What I find astonishing about this story is the idea that if I'd stayed there, I'd die sooner. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call if you can tell me why. The break of the country is pretty clear. It divided England equally into the north, so be clear on this. The north is the northeast, the northwest, Yorkshire, the Humber, East Midlands, West Midlands. So that's why Kidderminster would be there. If I had stayed in Kidderminster, where my mum still is, I think she's just cracked the 75 mark, actually, so sighs of relief all round. If I'd stayed in Kidderminster, theoretically, I'd live less long than I will now that I've moved to London. 0345 6060 973. Why? Why do you think that is? The south, in case you're wondering, comprises the east, the southwest, London, and the southeast. Among younger age groups, common causes of death are suicide, poisoning, car crashes, liver disease. Over the age of 40, heart disease in men, breast cancer in women. Why would that be more likely to hit us in the north than it does in the south? What answer would you give to this question? And it's an astonishing piece of research, because 20% is a big enough gap for us to say something's happening here, something significant is happening here. If it was 2%, you'd sort of think it's within a margin of error. But if you live in the north, and where are we going to draw the line if we're looking at... Where's the line going to go? East Midlands, West... Well, anyway, you know where the north is. If you live in the north, you are 20% more likely to die before the age of 75 than if you live in the south. If, like me, you've lived in both... I wonder if you're better qualified to answer the question. 0345 6060 973. I don't want to indulge in lazy stereotypes, but I'm just trying to think. When I go back to Kiddie, people don't seem as healthy, but whether or not that's just because... Well, I genuinely mean that. I've made my way around Kidderminster. People don't look as sort of rosy-cheeked as they do in my part of London, but that could be a completely banal and bogus observation. Why do you think, wherever you live, why do you think living in the north raises your chance of dying early by a fifth? Okay? I'll take anything you've got on this. If you're in the north... perhaps you want to laugh at this finding. The research seems solid. Maybe you've got an insight, or maybe you've got a kind of grounds for dismissal. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. I'm trying to think of the things in my life that maybe will help me live a little bit longer. It's not... what is it? I like fresh air, but there's more fresh air. There's no southern monopoly on fresh air. Healthy living, you can't sort of suddenly lose the ability to buy fresh fruit and vegetables when you pass the Watford Gap. What would it be? I mean, getting out and about. I find it harder living in London than I ever did when I lived in the Midlands or the North. There's more countryside, theoretically, on your doorstep the further away you get from the conurbations. Money, health, drinking too much. Why would messages about health resonate more in the South than they do in the North? I genuinely find this sort of thing absolutely riveting, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it will yield the answers that I'm looking for. Simple question, wherever you live, why do you think in England you're more likely to die early in the North, if you live in the North, than you are if you live in the South? Hit the numbers now, you will get through. 0345 6060 973. There's some slightly cliched and obvious answers. I don't think it's going to be entirely linked to pies or the fact that you can get curry sauce on your chips, but I do want to know why you think, or indeed why you think you know, why living in the North shortens your life by 20%. You're 20% more likely, rather, to die before you're 75 if you live in the North than if you live in the South. And I don't, at the moment, I don't really have any answers. Matt says, I'm from Droitwich Spa. I know it well, Matt, in Worcestershire. It's near where I grew up. I now live in Twickenham, which is near where I live now. He says, when I go home, they seem to work more and play less than we do down here. Really? Really? I don't know. Caroline was suggesting in the break that it might be to do with cars and public transport. There was a brilliant bit of journalism the other day. I can't remember where it was, but in response to the sort of northern powerhouse and the revelation that most of the public investment is still going into the south, despite George Osborne's promises to build a northern powerhouse. It was a 35-minute journey by car, which took a journalist 2.5 hours by public transport. So something like that saps you, not your will to live, but it adds to your stress levels, harder to get around. I don't know, I'm thinking out loud. Terry's in Scarborough, lovely part of the world. Terry, what do you think?
Hi there. I lived in London, in West London, in Ealing for 26 years, and have recently retired and moved back up north, where I'm originally from.
Yes.
And I think part of the problem is people's diets and people's health. Yeah, absolutely. I have never seen so many people smoke around this area, and actually girls as well as boys smoking openly in the street, which I would never have seen when I was in London.
Yeah, you would.
Well, not as much as here, believe me.
Okay, well, why? I mean, just in terms of speculation, purely, obviously, why do you think that is? I mean, it's not...
Do you know what I think it is? I think it's a pleasure thing because, again, there is a hell of a difference between the North and the South economically. And I think people get a little bit of pleasure factor out of smoking. And also, you know, with a bad diet, i.e. absolutely on the coast with fish and chips and food that's not particularly good for you. And I really think that...
But you go to... I mean, I'm trying to think of the southern equivalent. Where would be... I mean, where does East Anglia fit into this? Is East Anglia in the north or the south? Can you remember what I said a minute?
I think that's in the middle bit, really, somewhere.
Yeah, you can't... There is no middle, but yeah, the east. So you go to somewhere like Great Yarmouth, it's going to be... It's grimmer than Scarborough. God, I'm making some friends this afternoon.
It's not as grim as it is today here raining, believe me.
No, but in terms of the infrastructure and the diet and the state of some of the people you see mooseying around the place with a fag in their mouth and a bag of chips in their hand, Yarmouth will give Scarborough a run. In fact, Scarborough would knock Yarmouth into a cocktail. Scarborough's much more salubrious than Great Yarmouth. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Surprises me, really. But that was my basic...
It's 37 years since I went to Scarborough, Terry. I'm not going to lie to you.
No, it's a long time. Obviously, I lived in London for 20-odd years. And also, I think, probably personally, I noticed the difference because I worked in the restaurant industry when I was in London.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
So diet, smoking, diet and lifestyle. You think there's a genuine divide between your neighbours in Ealing and your neighbours in Scarborough when it comes...
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also, I think, you know, as I think one of your colleagues said earlier this morning when I was listening to you, that there is a north-south divide in the terms of work and technology as well. And
but that shouldn't shorten my life, should it? If I'd stayed in Kidderminster, I could be dead now.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I believe it. I believe there's no investment up here.
Okay.
That adds to almost a depression, which leads to smoking, alcohol, drugs, and bad diet. I think there's a connection there.
Well, it's a start. I mean, yeah, you're probably onto something. There used to be a lovely ice cream. Speaking about bad diet, the first ice cream parlour I ever went to was in Scarborough. Is it still there?
There's one on the seafront, isn't there?
Yes.
The Harbour Bar, I think.
That's it, and the children's playground.
Old Michael Winner used to love when he was up here.
Yeah, don't spoil it. And then the children's playground on the other side of the road, the other side of the promenade, used to have a zip wire in it. It was the first zip wire I'd ever been on.
Yeah, all still there.
You're joking.
No, I'm not. All still there.
So I'll take the kids to Scarborough.
Absolutely.
Shock of their life. We went out to Thailand on their last holiday. Thank you very much, Terry. 0345 6060 973. Actually, before you go, any regrets about retiring to Scarborough?
Well, the thing is, I'm very lucky because I'm still able to visit London quite a lot and stay with friends, so I can get around wherever I like.
Did you just tell me that the best thing about Scarborough is that you can still get back to London on a regular basis?
Yes, I did.
Bless you. It's 22 minutes after 12. Why? North-south. I like this question. And actually, let's take Terry's answers, which I think are fair. Diet, smoking. Why would you be more... If the poorer you are, the more likely you are to eat rubbish and smoke. That's actually true. But it's got to be more than socio-economics, this. And I think that what he said about pleasure, odd though it sounds, and a Labour politician, I think, got into trouble for saying this a few years ago, during the sort of heady days of the smoking ban debate. The idea was if you haven't got much, then that pleasure you get from your first drag on your cigarette is one of your sort of most profound pleasures of the day. And it's very hard to say that without sounding like the mother of all snobs, as the Labour politician, I forget who it was, discovered when he said it out loud. It may have been, I think it was Labour. It doesn't matter, does it? Because we're not football with our approach to politics on this programme. We're trying not to be like football fans, trying to be more sort of open. And yet there was something in that. When you're skint, when you're really on your uppers, you enjoy those little vices a lot more than you do when you've got lots of choice about what you're going to do for fun. I think you do. I hope that makes sense. James is in Camber Sands. James, what do you think?
Yeah, hi. I think this is just a blip. You know, you've got to think the people who are dying that we're talking about, these are people who worked maybe 40, 50 years ago. What were the jobs that they were doing? They were down in the pits. You know, there's some people I know, because I used to live up north while I was at uni, met a few people and their parents, they worked in the pits and stuff, they had emphysema and things.
It's from 1965 to 2015, there were 1.2 million extra premature deaths. You might be able to account for a few of them with coal mining, but not 1.2 million of them.
Well, maybe not all of them, but I think there was a lot of jobs, like, you know, because it was more of an, you know, industrial work.
Yes.
The jobs that were going down there as opposed to what people might have been doing in Kent, you know. So I think that'll contribute some of the things to it. But yeah, there is a little bit of it to do with, you know, diet and things like that. But I do think the working aspect of it, you know...
Do you think, is there a personality issue involved here? You might not be the person to answer this, but that's fine. I'll put the question out there anyway. You know, we associate Pete Yorkshire then, we associate northern sensibilities with a sort of stubbornness, particularly Yorkshire. You've got a sort of gruff stubbornness. So the idea that they might be more resistant to public health interventions and more resistant...
You say that, but the one thing I've learnt from Yorkshire people... And I'm from Norfolk, you know, but when I went to Yorkshire, they're the friendliest people I've ever met.
No, I know. Well, my family's all from Yorkshire. No, you can be gruff and stubborn and still be gorgeous and great fun to spend time with. But it's just the idea that no, you know, the Geoffrey Boycott type pastiche of a Yorkshireman. No one's going to tell me to drink less. No one's going to tell me to smoke less. Is there anything in that, or am I sounding whatever the county-based equivalent of racist is?
Now you're calling yourself racist.
I can't be racist about Yorkshire because my mum and dad are from Yorkshire. That's what you say, isn't it? Some of my best friends are black. Let's go to Russ, who's in Bromley. Russ, what would you like to say?
I just want to say I think there's a kind of similar reasons for why there's such a difference in health expectancy or life expectancy in the London and the South and compared to the comparison to the North, similar to that of the US and
really?
England. Yeah, I used to live in the US. Also, I live in Leeds during term time, and so I can see that transport isn't readily available like it is in London.
But why is that? Forgive me for interrupting. I'll pick them off one by one. Yeah. Why is the inadequacy of public transport going to impact on my life expectancy?
I think walking really makes a difference. Just actually sitting, not sitting, rather, in a car all day when you're going to places really makes a big difference. I moved over here when I was 15. I was quite a bit bigger than I am now. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
And I quickly was able to sort of, I guess trim down.
So oddly, because if I were an alien talking to you from a distant planet, and you said that public transport, because I would think that public transport makes you walk less because you're catching public transport, but of course it's the choice between a car and you drive your car everywhere because public transport's not good enough, whereas in the south, especially in London, public transport is generally so good that you'd be daft to drive anywhere, so if you're going into central London.
Well also, I mean, up north it's it's kind of I guess information isn't as readily available. Maybe education levels aren't as high as they are in the south. Obviously, economic development isn't as high as well. So
why would either of those things make me die sooner, though? If I was less educated or less wealthy, why would I die earlier?
Education, I think. Well, I guess there's kind of a critical mass point by which no more education will actually lead to any more life expectancy, increase in life expectancy, because the education level required to make healthy choices kind of is reached at a certain point.
It's an impossible one, this, isn't it? Because there's But
I think that it does make a difference, because if you're more well educated, you probably probably pay closer attention to news events that to do with health.
Yeah, maybe. I guess the danger on something like this is you're speculating about people that you almost by definition you end up patronising. It's the topic we haven't done today. Some brilliant research published reported in the Independent about education level, explaining pretty much down to a T the result of the Brexit referendum. But if I sit here and say, turns out that the poor if a few more people had been a bit better educated, the result would have gone the other way. You might as well just paint a target on your backside. You've just told Northerners that they're too uneducated to realise what food is good for them and bad for them. You did it in a very charming, diplomatic way, and you might be right, but no one's going to turn around as a result of being told that they're thick and go, right, I'm going to eat more apples. I don't know how you deal with these sort of issues. Same with the Brexit thing. Now, no one is going to turn around having been told that the result breaks down on educational levels, remain highly educated, leave poorly educated. No one's going to turn around and say, oh God, I must have made a terrible mistake, because all the people who are better educated than me thought the opposite. I don't know how you deal with that. I don't know how you cross that bridge. And I still don't know why. Why would I be more likely to die before the age of 75 if I stayed in Kidderminster than moved to London at the age of 18, 19, 12:30 is the time. Russ, thank you. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. I think it was John Reid, who was Health Secretary, Labour Health Secretary at the time. A few of you have got in touch to say it was him that made the comment about single mothers smoking. And there was truth in it. I may have clumsily related what the thinking behind it was, but the idea was, look, if you're great, if you can go and sit in the park and enjoy the sunset, then that pleasure that you get, if you've got time off, if you've got relaxation time, if you enjoy reading, all of these things, you can go to the cinema, all of these things you can do for pleasure. If that pool shrinks, if that list is much shorter, the fact is you get a chemical hit out of having a drink or having a smoke that is a substitute for the kind of more profound pleasure you might get by exercising choices that are only available to wealthy people. And the south-north, north-south divide along money lines is pretty profound. I presume, as a fully paid up member of the middle classes, the cosmopolitan elites, I presume if I'd stayed in Kidderminster, I would still have pursued the lifestyle choices that I've pursued in London, or not. I don't know. But according to the latest research, if I had, then the likelihood of dying before the age of 75 would be 20% higher in the north or the Midlands than it is in the south or the southeast or London. And we've got some answers or some thoughts on why. I'd like the personal ones as well, the actual personal experiences. So Terry, who used to live in Ealing and now lives in Scarborough, is struck by, I think, did he move back to Scarborough? And it doesn't matter. He's struck by the amount of smoking that he sees. So then you ask, why would people in the north be more likely to smoke than people in the south? And you're left with some fairly kind of unflattering conclusions, possibly patronising conclusions. Are people in the north less susceptible to public health programmes? Do they have fewer billboards up telling them not to smoke? So remember that wonderful Advertising Standards Authority report where there was one, it used to be at the top of Ladbroke Grove where I used to live, and it was the one where the cigarettes were like arteries, that smoking clogs up your arteries. So they did this advert where the cigarettes coming out of the packet were like fat. They were made of fat. Do you remember that? And the Advertising Standards Authority's got more complaints about that than almost any other billboard in years, and the main complaint was it was really putting people off smoking. Just love that. That's just why don't you like that anti-smoking advice? It's really putting me off my fags. But I don't know whether that's more likely to happen in the north than it is in the south. Come on, let's crack on. Michael's in New Malden. Michael, what do you reckon?
Hello, James. So I might be talking absolute rubbish.
Well, you're in good company.
I grew up in Wigan, which is historically a coal mining and sort of textile industries. And 10 years ago, I moved to London. So when I was growing up in Wigan, we used to have art galleries. There was a drum croon, and there was a wonderful museum about the Victorians and about history of Wigan. It was called The Way We Were.
Yes.
It had a Victorian schoolroom. It had actors. Every primary school was forced to go there. But they've all gone. They all closed down about 10 years ago. And I'm just wondering if it's something to do with perhaps the lack of art in, I mean, certainly in Wigan, but maybe in other areas in the north as well. I mean, compared to the south, compared to London, because in Wigan now there really is not a lot to do apart from go out drinking. I mean, there's a lot of emphasis on sports, but there isn't.
Do you think people in the south go out a lot? I mean, it's mostly Netflix and stay at home, isn't it, these days, is it?
Yeah, but there are more options. You know, there are theatres, there's comedy, there's music, there is a lot to do. So
again, it's the pleasure thing. You get profound pleasures by doing the things you do, the horizon-broadening experiences that make you feel at one with the world. And if you don't have the opportunity to go down those paths, you might just have a bevy and a smoke.
I think so, yeah. I think perhaps so.
65, though, 1965 to 2015. So for a significant part of that period, there'll be plenty of people who were living in the glory days of Wigan as a capital of culture, Michael. So it's not going to hold true for the people who were dying in 1965, 75, 85 or 95, is it?
No.
But it might hold true for the more recent. Things to do. Let's just say there's more to do. Therefore, you get pleasure where you can find it. You've lost your accent. Did you ever have much of an accent?
I have lost it slowly.
What, deliberately?
No.
Consciously?
Subconsciously.
Well, one of the questions I always intend to put on Mystery Hour, and I always forget to ask, is why some accents, like French people, never shed their accents at all. Scottish people never shed their accents at all, so it's not linguistic, and yet some people from other parts of the country shed their accents quite quickly. I don't get that. Michael, I like it. It's not going to sort of end the conversation, but it's certainly going to be part of it. Educated people can often navigate healthcare better, but again, we're back to this presumption that people in the north are less educated than people in the south. Is that really true? The south is a big place. A very big place. To James O'Brien's text just in, Kidderminster is not in the north. No, it's in the Midlands, which I've said about a million times. But for the purposes of this research, the north comprises the northeast, the northwest, Yorkshire and the Humber, East Midlands and West Midlands. The south comprises the east, so East Anglia, I guess, the southwest, London and the southeast. It's fairly straightforward. Why would I live longer in the south than I would in the north? John is in Clapham. John, what do you think?
Hi, James. Thanks for taking my call.
You're very welcome.
First of all, in regards to your last question on accents, I grew up in France, so I would say that it's to do with national pride, so pride and national identity.
Would that work with Scotland as well?
Yeah,
it
I
would.
would say so. Whereas maybe people in England and London perhaps don't have that sense of belonging, maybe national pride, but that's maybe a topic for a different discussion.
Correct.
What I wanted to discuss is not just echo a couple of the points that your previous calls have said regarding smoking. It's not just the people who are smoking, it's maybe the pregnant mothers that are smoking as well. If you just Google life expectancy UK map,
yes,
like the second image that comes up is a very detailed and contrasted visual map that details the stark difference between the north and the south on this point, and it's also echoed on the alcohol consumption front.
So so that's the what?
Why?
Yes, that's the what. What's the why?
It's going to be the why. It's probably related to things to do. My mum is from Liverpool. She grew up there, and she said that what they used to do is shop and in the evenings go out and drink and eat. But I guess in London you can do similar things, but more. They're a lot more things to do.
It just wobbles a bit. I think it works as a theory until you start imagining your own life, and you sort of think, well, my mum's from Sheffield. I grew up in Kidderminster. I don't really go out a lot in London. I suppose. And also walking and fresh air. I'd rather live in Buxton than Balham, or I'd rather live in. Quick, think of something that begins with C and is very bucolic. Keswick. It's not a C, but it's going to work for the alliteration. I'd rather live in Keswick than Clapham, but according to this, I'd live longer in Clapham than I would in Keswick.
Yes, and one of the reasons why is many people in London don't own cars and use public transport. Public transport is a lot safer as well. So maybe the number of car accidents, I'm not sure how large that is in difference, but that could have something to play in that.
Yeah, well, it is one of the major causes of death among the younger age groups, and they'll be relevant to this.
Yeah, drink driving as well, that could be a combination of...
But why would I be more likely to do it in the north than the south? That's what I can't get my head around, John.
That's a tricky one. I don't have the answer to that, but there is another point I wanted to raise that is related to health, and it's to do with doctors and quality of the health difference between the north and the south. My cousin just finished his training. He's I think like a doctor trainee.
Yes.
He's excellent. He is one of the top in the class, and he had the choice. Because if you are at the top of your promotion, as they call it, or at the top of your class, you have a particular bunch as to where you want to go. And most of these doctors, the best doctors, decide to move to the southeast. So because of the sort of quality of life and that, so you're getting better medical care. I mean, that's going to upset a lot of people. I'm going to take your word for it, but obviously any furious medics getting in touch from the north, I'll pass on your details, John. 12:42 is the time. Joe in Accrington makes a great point. Please, he says, with several exclamation marks, people are conflating London with the whole of the south. You're absolutely right, mate. London might have all the arts, etc., but Devon, Gloucester, Slough... You're quite right. Although London's such a big population that it probably is big enough to skew the overall figures, it's certainly wrong to suggest that, Wigan has a less vibrant cultural life than, for example, I don't know, Weston-super-Mare. That would be in the east. Great Yarmouth. No, that would in Weston-super... Oh, I don't know. Tracy's in Ealing. Tracy, what would you like to say?
Oh, hi, James.
Hello, Tracy.
I live in Ealing, but I'm originally from Sheffield.
I know you're from Sheffield. I know that accent anywhere, Tracy.
I thought you would.
Sound like my Auntie Christine. Go on, what do you want to say?
Anyway, I go back to Sheffield quite a lot to visit my family, and it is like a bit of a breath of fresh air, literally, but it is a bit of a breath of fresh air when I first get there, because it's a lot more relaxed. And, I mean, you can even notice that on the motorway. You get to a certain point on the motorway where there's no cars really coming up behind you. And it's more of a relaxed drive.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
On the way back from Sheffield, when I'm coming back from Sheffield, it's very relaxed, and then it gets to a certain point, and then you can feel the cars sort of shunting you to go forwards faster.
I do find driving a different experience inside and outside London, but so I guess that just holds true if you were to take it up to the north. But all of this would explain why people in the north lived longer, not shorter lives than people in the south.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking. But after I've been there, even just a couple of days, I can feel that there's, and it's not just because I live in London now. I felt that when I actually used to live in Sheffield, that there is a feeling of that. In the north that you're forgotten.
Is there really?
Yeah, that they're forgotten, and they just get the dregs of whatever's left, and London is this big place where everything happens and they get the best of everything, and if anything happens, like even with terrorist attacks, it's like people think, well, they don't think about it could happen out here, and it's probably more vulnerable out here than in London.
Doesn't matter whether they're right or wrong, if that's what they're thinking. Why would that shorten my life, though?
Well, because I feel like it sort of makes people feel a bit more inward, and I think if you feel, I don't want to say depressed.
No.
But if you feel sort of, I don't know what
less valued. That is what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah,
a bit less valued by your own country.
Yeah, I think that does take a toll on your health.
God.
And I think there also is not the promotion of health there. When I'm in London, and not just, central London and things like that, but you can see all the health shops and gyms and things here, but when I go up north, it's just not there. I mean, I exercise when I go there. I go out into the fresh air and everything, and everybody looks at me.
Really?
Yeah.
Look, I mean, you can get away with this just because you are from Sheffield originally, but we're indulging in some pretty lazy stereotypes here.
Well, no.
Were they all, when you were going for a jog, was everyone else wearing a flat cap and just taking their whippet for a walk?
No, but I hate when Londoners talk.
Yeah, you see, you just did it yourself. You said, I go up north, I go to the gym, I go for a jog, and no, everyone looks at me like I'm mad.
Well, I probably do look a bit weird because I'm a power walker. I'm not a...
Oh, that is just weird. My granddad did that. My granddad was a power... I never met him, my mum's dad, and he was from Sheffield as well. Is it a Sheffield thing, power walking?
No, nobody else does it. I've never seen anybody do it, really. I thought we'd here, but the hills are brilliant.
I thought we'd stumbled on some Sheffield secret there. No, my mum's dad apparently used to do the, like they do in the Olympics. They still have that as a discipline where they walk. Is that what you do, or is power walking something different? Do you do the one with the sticks?
No, I haven't done the one with the sticks.
So you walk and your little elbows are flapping around like a chicken?
A bit like that.
Yeah,
but mine's it's very fast.
Yeah, I know. And so your bum's wobbling around and your elbows are going up and down like a fiddler. Is that right?
I assume so. I haven't really thought about it.
So not seeing it from behind.
I just get on with it.
Tracy, long may it continue. Long life to you, Tracy. 12:47 is the time. Comes at you fast, doesn't it, life? Just as we're stereotyping all Northerners as sort of pie-munching, unhealthy ignoramuses, a story comes in from the Daily Telegraph suggesting that actually possibly they are a little bit more health conscious than we realise. Victoria Beckham launches legal complaint against Takeaway after it claimed its pizza crusts are thinner than her. This is from the Sidhu Golden Fish and Chips in Battle Hill in Tyneside. It's a little bit more serious than the headline suggests. They sort of accuse her of having some sort of eating disorder while being in the process of describing their pizza crust as being even thinner. We're talking about why people in the north are 20% more likely to die before the age of 75 than people in the south. And I'm going to play my joker. All right? Chip pans. Did you hear my tummy grind then? Did that go out over the radio? I said chip pans and my tummy gurgled. Rumbled. Chip pans. Seriously, growing up we had a chip pan. No, none of my friends who didn't have a mum and dad from Yorkshire had a chip pan. Deep fat fryers. It's a northern thing. That's got to be part of it, no? Or again, am I indulging in whatever the word is for having a sort of county or points of the compass based prejudice? Because I swear, I mean, we only got rid of our chip pan after I nearly burnt the house down, and I never saw one in a friend's house from the south. It could be just a coincidence, but I'm going in with the chip pans as my joker at 12:52. Discuss. 0345 6060973 is the number to call. And Craig just ticking a couple of boxes for me. Up here in Barnsley, James, you've spelt up wrong, Craig. You've spelt it UP, mate. You mean double OP, don't you? Up here in Barnsley. We're too busy worrying about our flat caps and whippets to care about us health. Sophie's impressed. And Sophie, what do you think?
Afternoon, James. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise, Sophie.
Just listening, just to the lazy stereotypes that we've had this afternoon on this question. It's just it almost baffles belief that people think that the North is actually like that.
Well, hang on a minute. The callers have been from Scarborough, from Sheffield, from Wigan. I mean, it's not like we've all been sitting in Zone 1 throwing eggs at the North.
That's true, but they are now in London, and it was just a very sort of just a shocking sort of
yes, you're right.
Jolt for me that people, because I'm a law student. I'm going to be starting my training as a barrister in September, so I sort of took offence to the idea that people in the North are less educated.
Well, so did I. I mean, don't.
In the South.
No, I know it is odd. So why do you think you're 20% less likely to live beyond 75?
I hope not.
Well, come on, you use your legal training. I want that forensic legal brain now in action, Sophie.
I honestly think it's socio-economic. And I think that, when people talk about healthy options, and it's very easy to think like that when you can afford to.
Yes.
When you've got a family to feed and the cheaper option is less healthy, of course you're going to go for the cheaper option. It isn't laziness. It's not a lack of education. It's necessity. And also, what struck me as well was when you read out the different areas. And I went to university in Birmingham, so anywhere. So that sort of shifted my perspective on the North-South divide a little bit. Yes. But when you read it out, the politics of that struck me as well, and this might be a little bit generalised, considering my constituency, you put a pig up in a blue rosette and they vote for it.
Yes.
But the politics of that, the areas that are affected, the North and the West Midlands, they're Labour voting generally.
Yes.
Especially in the big cities, and the home counties. And again, London is now, especially now these days, Labour area. So I might have gone off on a limb, but could there be something in that? Could it be that resources are perhaps there in those Tory areas?
Well, this is certainly what George Osborne was accused of during the sort of Northern Powerhouse shenanigans. His point of the Northern Powerhouse was to shift resources and infrastructure and money to the north, but he didn't really deliver on that.
Yeah, it was all. I think it was something like 90% of it was still down south, and it was based down south.
What about my chip pan theory, or does that unfortunately play into your stereotype accusation?
It does a little bit, but there's nothing better than chips from a chip pan.
Well, you see, it's the chip pans. We've solved it.
I'm on your side with that. There you go.
I've got 3.5 minutes of the programme left, and we've just solved the mystery of the North-South divide life expectancy chasm.
I think we should export them down south, and then it'd balance it out.
Where we've got Tefal Actifries down here, they're not quite the same. Where are you going to law school?
Well, I'll be training in Manchester, and that's where I hope to stay. I love Manchester.
Yeah, I love Manchester as well. No, it'll be a lovely part of the world. Take care, and good luck with your study, Sophie. When you start your is it a mini pupillage? No, you start a pupillage. Are you soon?
Start pupillage after I've done the training. It's
right. So you're going to law school first.
Yes.
Got you. I met George Carman once in Manchester. My mate's dad was George Carman Jr. in some big legal case.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty special.
Wow.
Covering a lot of ground today, Sophie. Thanks ever so much. I apologise for the stereotypes and the prejudice. 12:56 is the time. What was his name? Oh, man. Getting old. Richard's in Whetstone. Richard?
James, I'm really sorry. I'm going to blow it out of the water for you.
Shut the front door.
We live in London. My sister and I lived at home with my mum and dad. My mum had a massive chip pan.
Yeah, but you don't have one now. You don't have one now, do you?
She's still got one.
Yeah, but you don't have one now.
She made lovely chips every night. My mum can't cook for toffee. Made chips every night. We ate chips every night.
There's nothing like chips from the pan. But I don't think I think your mum might still have a chip pan, but neither you nor your sister. You've both left home, have you?
We both left home.
And neither you... No, don't talk over me when I'm about to issue a zinger. Neither you nor your sister have a chip pan.
We don't have a chip pan, but we still make chips. My children, my mum's grandchildren still go round to my mum for fresh fried chips.
Yeah, well, that's QED, though, because the younger generation, your life expectancy, in the north, you'd have it. You'd still have it. We might have a chip pan with the older generation. Peggy's in Essex. She does too. Dripping on toast for tea in Essex. I thought that was pure Yorkshire. Richard, thank you. Good effort. Jack's in Chester. Jack, what do you reckon?
Hi, James.
Hello,
I'm a paramedic, so I've worked quite often, always in the north.
Oh, great.
And originally from North Wales. And there's a massive difference of health across that border. For example, if you have a heart attack in North Wales, you'll get thrombolised, hopefully by the paramedic outside your house and sent to a local hospital. But if you're in Chester over the border, you'll get sent straight to Broad Green in Liverpool for PCI and back, hopefully, to your local hospital within a few hours. Now, in the south, it's everywhere, so everyone has PCI available to them.
Good grief, that's pretty stark. We were having a bit of a giggle about chips a minute ago, but this is a really serious issue of essential geographical discrimination.
Yeah, for my stepdad, there's a petrol station that I can drive to in about 20 minutes, and I'll call an ambulance from there, because just over the border he'll get better treatment.
If you were having a heart attack in North Wales, you'd drive yourself over the border before you phone 999?
Well, yeah, because you'd have better treatment there forward. And that's probably the same with people in Keswick and stuff. Unless the air ambulance is there in the daytime, at night time they'll have to go to Blackpool. So
it's the amount of money that's invested in the hospitals, the amount of infrastructure investment, that's always going to go more towards the areas with higher population. But if you could equalise it somehow, balance it out somehow, you'd still see... Well, you're a paramedic, mate. Crikey. What about if I have a heart attack in Leicester Square? Where should I go first before I ring 999?
I've no word there. Just call us. We'll find you.
Good man. Thank you, Jack. That was fascinating. Apologies to everybody who didn't get to contribute.